recognize the space and just acknowledge that we are people and we have busy lives, but we do personal check-ins to just ground ourselves. My name is Oscar Moguillon. I'm with Cooperation Humboldt. I'm on staff. I am feeling like I have a lot of balls in the air, and I think I'm gonna catch them all because I have big things planned for Thursday and Friday and big conversations. So I'm getting myself in that like preparedness mindset to just like be confident and be present with my space and my surroundings. So feeling grateful. I'll pass to Sabrina.
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's been a long, rewarding day. I woke up from like a dream that was really like one of those dreams where it's like, you know, your subconscious was doing some deep work there. So I woke up and I was like, whoa, like gotta process that. So from start to finish, it's been a very productive, but like, you know, draining, I guess, day. But I'm happy with it, and I'm happy to like be lay in my bed after this and read and be in an electric blanket and allow my brain to slow down. But I'm excited about this, and yeah, pass.
Okay, hello, I'm Clara Hernandez. Maybe you've heard of CCAT, Campus Center for Appropriate Technology. I'm a Humboldt State student, and so yeah, I'm a co-director, and I live on site. And I'm just, I had a lot of meetings today, and I'm actually currently doing some class prep because we have for 4 courses, student teachers. And yeah, so I'm doing some work to, gather materials together for the students to get hands-on. So, but I could do this at the same time.
Cool. I love CSET. I feel like CSET is like the dream place to be as a student if you're into all those ecological sustainability practices. What a place to learn. So cool. I'm jealous. Sabrina, have you heard of CSET before?
Sorry, it's
No,
actually
not more than the CSAT of Eureka.
sorry, it's pronounced CCAT.
Oh, right.
CCAT.
CCAT. Yeah, I knew that, and I feel like I heard CSET for some reason, maybe the connection or something. But yeah, CCAT. They have like a tree right in. Yeah, I know exactly. BSS right behind the BSS. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Sabrina, do you wanna share your screen or should I for the present? Actually, I'm gonna share the screen because I'm having better connection than Sabrina is right now. It seems. 1 second.
That's what I was thinking.
All right. So I will share screen. All right, without further ado, we already did our check-ins. So this is just week 4 of a 6-week course that we're offering to community members and groups who are interested in being resilient hubs and essentially maybe being part of a resilient hub network here on the North Coast. We are new at this, we are learning, we are absorbing a lot of information. So any inputs and insights from the community is greatly appreciated. We are building off this, and this is actually this is like our first take, doing the 6-week thing. So first take, here we go, first slide.
Just to let you know, we're part of an organization called Cooperation Humboldt. That's why we're here. And Cooperation Humboldt is, you said you follow them on Instagram, so you might know a little bit. We're like a local grassroots organization that's working to build a solidarity economy in Humboldt. And a solidarity economy is basically just like it's like a network of resources and organizations and community members that share, share resources, exchange information, things like that. So that's why we're here. And when we're here, we're part of the disaster response and community resilience team, which basically we're working to build community power through disaster relief and community resilience, and just kind of create a stronger Humboldt County by offering things like skill shares and community education, access to resources, creating networks with emergency response organizations and service provider organizations, and just all the organizations within Humboldt that are like just doing work that services the community. We try to like develop relationships and support in any way that we can. There, if you want to check out our website, Cooperation Humboldt, you can get a better idea. I don't want to take up too much time in talking about that, but just so you know, like what the basis of this conversation is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. So so this week we were talking about community organizing. So what is community organizing? Well, it can look like a lot of different things depending on what the organization is. But it's a process where people come together and they work together to meet their needs and improve the lives of their community, and get an idea of what that looks like depending on each community. Building awareness around the needs and the resources, and developing a space for community advocacy. So how does community organizing specifically relate to resilience? Well, through the process of community organizing, you really get to know the needs of your community. You develop that intimate relationship. And through that, you can assess the gaps through conversation, through reaching out. You can just figure out where are the gaps in the services being provided, and how can we as a community come together and find solutions collaboratively, and not, we need to create systems that aren't always dependent on like service providers or government organizations. They definitely are helpful for a lot of reasons or a lot of ways, but we need to be able to understand that for a community to have all its needs met, the community needs to step up and get involved in the process of meeting those needs. So and then a community that is resilient is going to be better at responding to disasters, and they're going to have a plan in order. They're going to know each other. They're going to have that relationship developed. They're going to know where their resources are. So when a disaster does come, and we saw this during COVID, Humboldt did better than a lot of places, but as a whole, this country, this country is very different. All the places are very different, but they were not prepared for something like that. And so we see now the importance of being resilient and how that plays a role in being prepared for disasters. So, and making sure that the response to disaster is equitable, compassionate, and comprehensive, because a lot of times we see that during a disaster, the people who, are A-okay are the ones who, have the wealth, have the high socioeconomic status. I saw you raised your hand.
I actually did it by accident. I'm sorry.
No worries. I just want to make sure that if you did have a question, that you have a space to talk. If you do have a question, feel free to interrupt or to raise the hand, and we'll make sure that you are heard. So next slide. Goals, strategies, tactics. This is a method that we like to use to kind of implement, to really get an idea of like what it is that an organization or a program area is doing. So the examples listed on here are kind of the goals, strategies, tactics of this team, the Cooperation Humboldt's disaster response team. Goals are like the big vision, the big picture. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? For us, it's like I said, we're working to make Humboldt County stronger, more resilient as we face challenges, whether those be large scale disasters or small scale. We want to, create a strong response to situations that involves the community and build resilience. So what would be the strategies? That's a big vision. That's a big goal. What are the strategies to implement or to accomplish that goals? Well, creating networks, building resilient infrastructures, like resilient hubs, which resilient hubs are locations and organizations that can act as a source of strength during, before, and after times of disaster. Basically, just any organization that provides resources and strength for the people it serves. So having more of those, more intentional, resilient hubs. So when things happen, people know who to go to and where the resources are. So yeah, improving coordination and collaboration between local organizations. That's super important. When something comes up, are all the, having a network where all the organizations that help people, that serve people, can come together and be like, all right, what's going on? Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to address this? So those are strategies to accomplish those goals. And then the tactics are like these specific actions that are going to be taken. So for example, this curriculum, this workshop, we're bringing this to organizations to spread this knowledge. This curriculum would be an example of a tactic. Offering trainings, like disaster preparedness trainings, first aid, you are the help to help arise, those are some Red Cross offerings. We do spontaneous volunteer management. So when COVID happened and when the wildfires happened, Cooperation Humboldt was able to mobilize the community by, putting out a call we have like a network of community based off of like Facebook and social media and just the people that get involved with us. We just put out a call like, hey, we need people to deliver meals. Hey, we need people to respond to these needs requests of people who are sheltering in place. And then people reach out and they're like, I'm interested, what can I do? And then coordinating that. So spontaneous volunteer management is a big one. Some other things we do are we installed little free gardens for people for free. We would give them that helps to address the issue of food access. So things like that. Those are tactics, like very specific. So goal strategies tactics is like a good way for basically all these skills. Like this week 4 is kind of just helping develop the skills to, you want to get involved, you want to take action, but like how can you actually organize yourself to accomplish things? Because that is a difficult task.
Right.
So yeah, that's that.
So this is a time to have like a group discussion. And originally we were going to have the space for HUUF, but because HUUF representatives aren't here, we can ask our attendee at the moment if she would be comfortable to ask, like, what does CCAT do, right? Like, what does CCAT do that's already organizing within like group structures? And then there's the question, like, what community organizing do you see in your community? So having been a student for some time, you've probably already noticed like there are organizations doing some organizing around, HSU, around Arcata, around just the broader Humboldt community. And then how do you see your organization organizing with your community? So applying those two things.
It's actually really interesting that you're here because we were just meeting with an organization called Eco Vista. It's like a student-led organization down in Southern California. And one of the things we talked about is that Cooperation Humboldt is doing so much great work, and that's the organization Oscar and I work for. They're doing much great work in the community, but we're like the youngest ones amongst the youngest in the organization, and we're mid late 20s, and so we were really having a conversation about how can we connect with our local universities and schools and like get more youth involvement. So I am curious, as someone who's in if you're open to speaking, I'm curious like what is going on within the student population, and like is there a big interest in community organizing? Is that like something that a lot of people are wanting to try to get more involved in? Because we're definitely looking to like create more outlets and ways for younger people to get involved, because there's just so much energy there.
Like a training like this, but specifically rounded for CCAT.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. I'll start with saying that. Yeah. Let me answer the questions first. How about? But I will answer all of them. Okay. So a CCAT is for now. What we're doing is since during COVID, because I think we're applying that right during COVID times right now. Um, we had to close, so we're completely closed. We normally have volunteer Fridays where lots of people come, and then we cook for them and provide food from our gardens for their volunteer work. But now with COVID, we can't have any volunteers here. So what we do with the garden is grow food, and we take it to Humboldt Mutual Aid's farm stands, and which I'm glad you're saying all this because I would like to know if there's any other places I could take, food to, because that's kind of my main thing that I kind of wanted to enforce with my time there as a co-director for CCAT is providing food for people and making it accessible, even though the farm stands aren't always accessible, but it's still something out there. So there's something, and we do a lot of campus collaboration because yes, there's a lot of energy in students. They definitely want to join something, and there's lots of, especially Humboldt State has so many organizations already. Um, but yeah, we're always open to events like this and just events in general to, continue community building. And yeah, I'm 25 too, and it's just seeing the energy in the younger people is pretty amazing. Um, let's see, what community do you see in your community? Yeah, I've noticed all kinds of organizations, and I feel like there's still so much to learn from this area because, and that's what I like about Humboldt too, is all the events that are put like this, all the networking that's going on. I've met so many different people and organizations. It's been pretty amazing. Um, the last question. So yeah, we definitely are trying to network more. Right now we have a new co-director who was involved with BSU, which is Black Student Union, and other African American Center for Academic Excellence. He's trying to connect all these clubs on campus and organizations too, so we can do more because the space, it can often, I don't know if, yeah, it could often be, I guess, viewed as a greenwashing space, but we're really trying to bring out the social justice part. So yeah, definitely see more social justice in our environmental justice like mission because it's lacking that. Um, so yeah, I think I answered all your questions.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I remember being a student not too long ago, and I went to CCAT and I did some like activity thing, and then they like fed us this amazing food, and we like washed our own plates. And I can definitely see that being a limitation now, because of COVID. But you guys do have like a rain catchment system, and you guys have a really good like outdoor like space, and I can see like a lot of potential to like do trainings, because like one of the things we do is like, okay, Cooperation Humboldt is doing something like we're building a fence for this area we got. We're gonna make it a Skillshare. So now we're gonna like build this fence and then have members of our community join and be like, if you want to learn how to build a fence, come attend this. Like wear a mask, be 6 feet apart, and we can kind of work through that type of stuff. And so yeah, I just really do agree with you. Like there is a lot of networking happening behind the scenes, but what happens is that what I've noticed, at least as being a community organizer, is if you don't know the right people, you won't get the right responses. And that doesn't mean that you have to find the right people. It means that you have to have a lot of conversations that just lead you nowhere, so that you can then go somewhere else. Or you can get somewhere and be like, okay, now like I have a network of people to reach out to. Like I got referred to someone else. It's kind of like a maze, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a maze. It should be more open and transparent. And so I really am glad that CCAT is taking more of the social justice approach. I never saw it as greenwashing. I think people that don't get involved would obviously have those preconceived notions. But I do think that, you know, CCAT is a great place to kind of foster these ideas and build that culture within the student body. So thank you again for sharing.
Too, I think like the skills of just anytime like you join something and like you have meetings and you implement projects and you organize team members, like those skills are so valuable that they can be brought into, you know, any interest or any project that you go in the future. And it's not something that you get taught. You have to join something to learn those skills, and hopefully whatever you join, you know, supports you in developing those skills. So that's a part of the reason too, like what this presentation and stuff is about, is to try to through our experience working with the organization that does get, you know, get shit done, like we do a lot of work and get a lot of things done, the skills that we've developed to actually bring our projects into success. So yeah.
Oh, I really appreciate that because, you know, yeah, I am here for that reason too, because I'm actually taking a community activism class right now, and I want to take a community organizing class. But yeah, just any little, you know, you have different perspectives, you have different experiences. I just want to be able to master community organizing. So thank you. I really appreciate you putting this event on.
Love it.
Yeah, I would say part of mastering it is knowing that you're always going to be a student to it as well, because it's always changing, new player.
True. Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be a piece, you want to be a player, right?
Right.
One. And I know, like, I know that's something I'm getting into my headspace. Like, I'm gonna apply to this position. I have the interview tomorrow. I'm a player. I'm not just a piece. And you know that really, you know, kind of ties into this, because everyone is their own player in their own little niche, and it's about identifying, collaborating, and being respectful of those efforts in those groups. So we're going to move along to the next slide, which is roles and responsibility, and I think that segues really, really well.
Yeah. So yeah, so when you are with this, you know, kind of our audience here is the organizations that organizations or groups that we're working with to kind of help them assess like what it is they want to bring to a community, what it is they want to offer, how they want to develop in their impact on the community, things like that. So assessing, like first you have to kind of sit and think like, how does your organization fit in the community? Like what is your, you know, your organization does this and that, but like what's its role in the ecosystem of community? For example, being a hub of disaster preparedness resources and training. So, you know, or coordinating local disaster response. I know that HUUF, the organization that we're putting this presentation on for, they during before COVID, they were doing like a lot of workshops, like community building workshops, for example. They have a community garden, they have a commercial kitchen, so things like that, assessing like what it is that your organization or group offers to the broader community.
Right.
And then assess. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and then what you would want to do is you would want to make sure that what your organization is doing is representative of what your individuals are capable to do. You know, you don't want to be like that was one of the issues that we had, is that we started to do emergency volunteer management and we didn't have that background prior. And so now we're actually making a team. We did a strategic planning. We got some people with skills that can actually take over this work, get paid for it, and, you know, carry it out appropriately. So those are individual roles that, you know, and that's like a good way to kind of start thinking of that. Like, can we do this organizationally with the people who we have at this moment? You know, like that is like one of the first, like, you want to break down that barrier first before you even get moving. And then in responsibilities, like this kind of like just breaks that down even further. Like, what tasks are those individuals like assigned to? Like, do someone who's just volunteering know that they don't have to do like admin work and they don't have to put in 12 hours a week? Like, do they know that? Like, they need to be like made sure, because otherwise volunteers might come to you and say, I'm getting overworked, I'm burning out, like I can't do this, I didn't know that this was going to be the thing I was signing up for, and that's confusion. So you just need to make sure that responsibilities are like set in stone, that you are making sure that you are checking in with people who are on a volunteer basis, because when we want to give to a community, we don't want to feel like that's being extracted out of us. We want to feel autonomy. We want to feel like we are choosing to do this. We are getting learned experience. And when I first started with Cooperation Humboldt, I never felt that way because I had support, I had mentorship. I knew that if I worked hard and that I did the things that I wanted to do, that I could show my worth. And eventually I did. And now I'm in this place where I feel confident. I can like, you know, I can reach out to people if I'm stuck, and I can also like lean on some of my mentors for support if I ever need it. And often it's just like a reassurance boost. Like, I typically got it by now. I just like to check in with people to make sure they see it the way I see it, etc. So we're moving on to community organizing basics. So yeah, go ahead, Sabrina.
These are just kind of little basic things. So just knowing that every community is unique, and within each community are unique groups. So a community is not just one big thing. I really like to think of like community and as like an like a living organism. Like it's a big living thing of little components in which within each component, like each group, there are individuals. And so we see in Humboldt in our community, and I see this, and like Oscar and I see this because we do a lot of work with different groups. Like we work with the tribes, we work with, I know Oscar is doing a project with like the Latinx community. We work with the Hmong community. We're working on a project doing homeless outreach. I personally work with like the youth. So like all these different little facets of community. Each one is unique and each need is going to be unique. And like how that community engages with each other, what their past is, what their needs are, what works for them, that's all going to be different. And really it all comes down to like relationship, like really connecting on that human level, and like having conversations and giving space for everyone to like feel heard and feel like their needs are being met. That's so important. And yeah, learning the skills of community organizing, it takes time and practice. And so things like dropping into little workshops, like exactly what y'all are doing, that's really important to developing those skills. Reaching out to people that you work with that are maybe more skilled than you, and for mentorship or guidance, or like really looking up to people that your coworkers, your comrades, and seeing them as partners. Being kind to yourself and to others, that's really important. It's like you can be the most skilled community organizer ever, but if you can't practice, nonviolent communication, if you can't connect with your community, if you can't be kind, then those skills, they don't translate. It's just you can't care for a community if you aren't being kind and loving to your community. That's so important. And then keep the big picture in mind. Yeah, just the big picture, that we're all working together to achieve this big goal. And then cooperation over competition. We love this little diagram. Competition, everyone's thinking, having their thoughts, doing their thing, not really taking any other aspect of the organism, of community in mind. That's going to lead to competition, because people are, of course, going to be having the same thoughts when they're in the same community. And then if they're not having a conversation around that, then they're just going to end up competing. So instead, they need to be engaging in conversation with each other, so that you're not reinventing the wheel. If someone is doing something and they're doing it well, great. How can we support you? I'm not going to do what you're doing. I'll support you, but we want to support. We want to support you to do what you're doing and not just replicate it. Things like that. And if there's two organizations doing the same thing or similar things, how can they collaborate? So that's really, really important.
Yeah, it really is. And it's important. It's like worth mentioning, like in different ways, like the byproduct of thinking to yourself and not sharing your ideas is inevitable competition. Like you will compete with other people. because you guys have a similar idea, but you guys are doing it differently. But the byproduct of cooperatively working on something is bringing in that competition before it exists to create something larger, greater, and more well-rounded and effective, essentially. Some of the people use it for bad, like I don't want to say bad, like Amazon is a good example on how cooperation is kind of like skewed and like hidden behind these layers of like what capitalism and monetizing and unfair advantages looks like. So like it's not always like in the best light, but within local communities, within community organizing, yes, it works. Like you need to know what other people have interest and capacity in, and you need to like be offering, mutual aid networks essentially. Okay. So these are things that I would say are pretty remedial that I would assume most people like already do. But it's good to just bring them up because they're important to the next things that we're going to talk about. So in a meeting, you need to know, like, why are we meeting? Like, what are we doing here? Like, there's really when I was in business school and I have a friend who resurfaced this, but a power analysis, a power meeting structure identifies like the purpose, like why people are there, like what is it that we want to get out of it, like what is the outcome and what are our roles at this meeting. And you can Google that later. It's power, but it really helps like identify the purpose of why you're meeting in the first place. Then making sure you plan enough beforehand, like agenda, all those things that we already know. Facilitating, we're facilitating right now. It's a role that I think should be distributed. I don't think it should always be one person. I think if the team is sharing equal weight and equal responsibilities, that the team should also equally be able to add things to the agenda and be able to speak up or to comment and say, hey, that's not a good idea. And even though everyone else is agreeing, I am part of this group and I think it's a bad idea for this reason.
I want to pause right there. I don't facilitating is just a simple little bullet point in here, but the role of the facilitator in the meeting is so important. There's so much power in being a facilitator because you're basically guiding the conversation. You're reading the room. You're making sure everyone's heard. You're keeping the meeting on track. You're a space. You're basically creating and like holding the space and ensuring that it's appropriate for everyone. And the role that there's a lot of like that goes into facilitation. And so I think that if you are looking to be like a leader in community organizing and you are looking to like organize groups and schedule regular meetings, learning facilitation skills is really, really important. It's super valuable knowledge, and there's a lot of resources out there for that. Yeah, we don't really have space here to like get too into that, but like through my time in Cooperation Humboldt, I started off I was nervous to facilitate. I didn't feel comfortable with those skills. So we worked with our team who was more skilled with facilitating, and they kind of like gave us opportunities to facilitate. So basically when you're facilitating, you kind of are like going through the agenda, and then opening up a space for each agenda item to be discussed, giving everyone space to discuss it. You're kind of like gauging the room, looking for people who are maybe wanting to speak up but are too afraid to. It's a really, really important role, and I just want to emphasize that because if you are someone who is kind of a leader in that way, then you probably will find yourself in the role of facilitation within meetings. And so finding ways to develop those skills within yourself is a really valuable step that you can take if to really hone in on like community organizing, community coordination type skills. So yeah, sorry to interject there, but
no, that's I was gonna take as like equal as amount of time on facilitating. Like, thank you for stepping in and sharing the importance of that. I do think it can be overlooked because it's like, oh, someone's just guiding us. Like, no, you don't want just someone, like you want someone who knows a boat and knows the ocean to steer a boat. You don't want, just some person steering the boat, right? Like you want them to be informed, trained. Like there's this really good book I haven't gotten a chance to finishing, but it's called the Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision Making. Some of our colleagues like suggested this book, and it just has a lot of really good points, because if you can get a whole bunch of people to collaborate with eliminating the risks of groupthink, then you have a really strong team with people who have like really good interest and like actually are passionate about what you're doing, and like with who you're doing it. The other part was just consensus-based agreements, which adds on to that, is you should never feel like the dictator. You should never be like making sure if one person agrees, like that's like the person that person's so high and mighty and so informed that like we have to like agree if he agrees, like that's a mistake waiting to happen. Everyone has value, everyone has worth, and it's up to the team and the leadership within that team to really, surface that and to make sure that it's being accounted for. And then participation, people who don't have that much time but think the idea is cool, people who want to be advisors but are understanding that there's no payment involved, and stuff like that. Like participation is important. Like you want to make sure you leave room for people to speak their mind.
And it's good that everyone knows, is like everyone knows and agrees upon what their level of participation is. It's important, like Oscar said, there's like the anchors, there's the participants, there's the advisors. That's how we at Cooperation Humboldt kind of break it down. The anchors are the people who, they're very heavily participating. They hold the team down. They're at every weekly meeting. They're facilitating the group. They're putting together agenda. They're carrying out tasks. They're really dedicating their time as leaders of the group. The participants are kind of like the people being led. They're doing the tasks, they're showing up to the meetings, they're in the conversation, but they're not necessarily leading it. They're leading it in their own way, but they're not like leading the group. And then the advisors are kind of the source of wisdom who you go to for advice, or who kind of help you make sure that you're on the right track. So yeah, really breaking down like the different levels of participation and making sure that everyone is committed to a certain level, and if they do commit to a certain level of participation, that they're following through. Because a big common theme in like community organizing or community groups is, everyone comes together with this great idea, and there's lots of momentum around it at first. Everyone's excited, and then the energy kind of dissipates after a few meetings. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I don't have time for this. And so, yeah, that's it. You really have to be very, very strategic and strict and organized right off the bat, so that you can avoid things fizzling out, because that is a very common end result.
Right. Hey.
And yeah, so it really is about communication and relationship. So when you do have a group and you are working together, how are you communicating? That's really important to establish. Are you communicating by email, by phone, by social media? At Cooperation Humboldt, we use a platform called Slack. It's basically like an organized set of chat threads, and it's really effective because we have so many different projects and groups in Cooperation Humboldt that if for example, we have like the way Slack, it organizes all the different group areas, and then anyone can kind of go in it and look at the conversation. If you have anything to post, to communicate with the team, you can go in there and communicate about it. And so that makes it really easy for everyone who's involved in like 5 different groups or whatever to kind of hop in and like be a part of the conversation. So that's like an effective thing we use. But yeah, communication and having a platform, and then establishing that right off the bat. How are we going to communicate? How are we going to keep in touch? How often? Developing that right away is really important to keep things, like I said, organized, so that it doesn't fizzle out. And then creating partnerships with organizations, that's really important. Reaching out, if you're wanting to do a certain type of work, look at your community, like who is doing work that's related to you. How can you support each other? Build a relationship, send an email out. Hey, I'm blah, blah, blah from this organization. And I'm doing this and that. What are you doing? Let's schedule a time to have a conversation. Things like that. Just like very simple very simple tasks of outreach can be very effective. That's how a lot of our projects came to be, is we literally just would email organizations that we were interested in collaborating with, or that we thought were doing something related to what we were doing. And we just developed relationships with tons of organizations. And then through that, then we would ask them to, connect us if it was appropriate. We would be like, is there a way we can get connected with what you're doing? Or how can we support what you're doing? Or what kind of support do you need? Maybe we can't offer that, but just to get a better idea. And it's really about like gauging what the community is doing and creating that knowledge. And then yeah, some best practices is having regular meeting times and locations. Right now it's Zoom, so that is pretty much for everyone, it's Zoom. But yeah, meeting regularly at a scheduled time is really important. And using a limited number of platforms. So if you're going to use, Slack, use Slack. Don't use Slack and Facebook and email and everyone's texting each other in a group chat, because that's just going to get overwhelming. Choose something and stick with that. And then documents, resources, and contact information are shared. An easy way to do this is Google has a really easy way to create folders and share files that everyone can access. And for us, that's what we do. It's a very effective way to collaborate on documents and resources together. But you could use something else. That's just the example we have. But yeah, establishing those practices, that's really important in like organizing and making sure your operation is efficient. Next slide. Oh, I think you skipped one. Oh no, okay. Do you want to hit this one, or you want me to?
All right, I need to move my Zoom icon thing because it's getting all mixed up with the PowerPoint slides. All right, so structure and decision making. So how does your group make decisions? So this is something that is commonly overlooked. People don't take enough time to set ground rules. Like, okay, if someone's speaking, like we do this thing where we have like this long list where it's like, all right, well, we want to make sure that people know their family and their pets are invited to the Zoom call. You don't have to feel like you have to be in a nice formal setting. Like we want you to feel like yourself in a Zoom call. Step up, step back. So if someone is not able to get voices or ideas out as much, we would like the group to collectively just think, okay, let's let this person speak more. Oh, like Oscar and Sabrina have been speaking the whole meeting. Let's make sure that, we can private message them and have them step back. Or, us as team members, we should acknowledge ourselves. Hey, like I've been speaking a lot. I'd like to give more room to people. I try to do that a lot during meetings because sometimes like it's so early and in the forming stage that people aren't ready to speak, but still having the opportunity to speak allows them to think like, what am I going to say if I say something? And then maybe it surfaces in another meeting or something like that. So unlearned oppressive dynamics. So unlearning oppressive dynamics, because this is just how we were brought up in the world. Like in a classroom, you are typically not in a circle, you're in rows, and the teacher even like will separate you in rows to make it easier for like, attendance or whatever, or you learn to like, X out the thing that's different, like you learn so many things in school just through like just the standard like American schooling system that like has you like sitting and looking up at someone, and then they say something and you like, okay, I'm going to follow that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take these instructions. So that's what unlearning oppressive dynamics kind of like goes around. It's like, there are things that can affect people negatively and can affect the efforts and the dynamics of the team negatively. And so those are some considerations when you are like forming. There are so many resources to look at when you're like trying to investigate, okay, like what is it that we need to work on as a group? And again, that's a consensus-based thing. Membership and participation. This is kind of like knowing what people are, like Sabrina was mentioning earlier, and we touched based on it, which is anchors, advisors, participants is how we do it at Cooperation Humboldt. We have a team. We make sure the anchor is, present and wanting to be present. The advisors are probably working at another facility, like actually getting paid, but advising us because they think the project is worth while, or it's worth for the community. And then we all know what participants are, and so I'll just go over that quickly because we already touched base on it. So, and then having power and using it well is something that I think like it doesn't mean one person has power. It's when someone's speaking, they have power. And so if you're going to bring something to the group that you think is helpful, try to take your time and like, try to see what the response is. If there isn't response, then maybe what you were saying, it needs to be worded differently, or you need a thought partner to, join you on this endeavor to share this idea and then present it again, and then you will have power there. So no matter how the organization is structured, those in positions of power bear the responsibility to use it well. And typically it would be anchor or an advisor. A firework just went off or something right outside my window.
I heard it.
Anyway, but anyways, you want to have transparency. You want to be open to critique. So knowing that, okay, I shared an idea and it didn't land well. Like, why didn't it not land well? Like, oh, it could harm the image of the organization. Like, oh, I didn't consider that this group may see it this way. Maybe we can work as a team to reframe it. So knowing your worth, knowing that when you were speaking, you do have power. When people are speaking, they do have power. So don't let anyone, be over anyone. And treating everyone with kindness, including yourself. It's easy to think like, oh, I'm being nice to everyone around me, but like, are you going home and like breathing? Are you stretching? Are you like going on a bike because you like biking? Like, don't forget to do the things you like take care of yourself. It's so important. And then interest and capacity. I think both Sabrina and I will speak on this because we're just keep touching base on that same thing where if you're not interested, like if you don't have like the capacity to like anchor a team, like don't like put yourself through the misery of like trying to do this work that isn't fulfilling for you. There are circumstances where maybe you're in there and you have an interest, but you don't have that passion. Like your passion is pulling you somewhere else. Like let's say you work with the youth and you like you know that's an immediate passion, but let's say you're on a disaster response and community resilience program area and like you're not really feeling that, but like over time you start to really like ground yourself with that work. You start to see the value of that work, and then it starts becoming more of an interest. It becomes more of a passion, something that you actually want to spend more time into, something that you would be willing to pursue, and help get other community members or people of your team. For us, it would be members of the core team, which go through a study session, a study group, and giving them the opportunities that, for example, I have had. Like, I would like people in the core group to experience the opportunities that I have gotten through them being interested and pursuing their interest. Understanding your organization's interests is a difficult one, because if you're like from CCAT, it's like, are you talking about just CCAT or are you talking about the university's interests? Because those are kind of like a little different, right? And knowing that there are strengths, so acknowledge them. Like, what are our strengths? Where can we start? What is the group already doing? Like, we were doing this before COVID. How can we make a less a contactless version of it, or something virtual that kind of fills that same need and like gives that niche of community members an outlet to engage your organization? Because it's not about, hey, check out what CCAT's doing or check out what Cooperation Humboldt is doing. It's, hey, check out this opportunity. We want to see how many people want to like join in on this. Like we want to see your presence. We want to make sure it's, it's the space for you. It's not for us to just promote who we are. Like, that's not important. That's a word of mouth thing. And then understanding members' capacity has been surfaced a lot, and it should be surfaced like numerous times, because if you're not getting paid for the work that you're doing, it's not like, oh, I'm getting exploited. It's, oh, I'm actually learning and trying to understand if this is something I want to carry out. Once you have the ability to really acknowledge that and say, this is something I am deeming as fulfilling work for myself, then you would get moved up to an anchor. And then our organization would be like, is this work for you? Is this the amount of payment that works for you? Like, that's how our process goes, is once people take on that sense of leadership, like participatory leadership, then we acknowledge that, we foster that, and we make sure that people are compensated. Like I feel compensated. I know that in the past, like I was working elsewhere, so I didn't need that level of compensation, but I was always communicative and I was always part of the budget writing, and I know how much money our team gets and I know how much I'm getting of it. Like I was part of that entire process. And then partnerships and filling gaps. Again, if you feel like you should just, like, if you feel that you have a good idea, go find that good idea somewhere. Like it's either somewhere in the state, somewhere in the country, or somewhere in the world that someone has done something similar for a similar cause, because we're all social advocacy, like people in our own heart. Like we all know, like, this is wrong, this needs work, like we're not returning back to normal, whatever that means. Like we want a change, we want fulfillment, we want to actually support our community. So finding partnerships and finding groups that can inspire your group is really, really beneficial, because it will shape your direction as well as give you that inspiration that this is achievable. Like I can do this. Like we mentioned a group that we met with earlier through the Transition US network, and we gave them the hope that, like, you guys can do the work you're doing because we're doing it and we're getting paid. And like, there's more resources down in Santa Barbara than there are in Humboldt. So you guys can definitely do the work you're doing and get paid. And they were like, oh, wow, that's so great to hear that you guys are doing what we're doing and you guys are getting paid for it. The problem with burnout is if you don't self-care, if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to burn out. And it's just a matter, it's not a matter of like what certain thing makes you burn out. It's just, if you don't take care of yourself, like if you fail to acknowledge and listen to your body and your mind, you will just have like, you won't have the energy.
It's so true. And that's an important thing. That whole self-care and burnout, it honestly deserves like a lot of attention. Not saying right now, I just mean like there should be groups that kind of offer those skills. Like I personally have, I'm fortunate because before getting really involved in this work, I did a lot of, I got really into like self-care. And so I have like a very strong, I'm very aware of what my needs are. I'm very aware of how to take care of myself, what it takes for me to be able to actually come to a meeting, come to this work and bring my best self forward. I know, my relationship with nature, my nutrition, physical movement, my emotional state. Like I'm very in touch with all those aspects of myself, and I know what my needs are and what how to take care of myself in that way. But it's really easy with this work to get so wrapped up in it and totally forget about yourself. And then suddenly it's 6 p.m. and you're like, oh my God, I haven't moved from this chair since 5 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And so, yeah, like really thinking like, what is it what are my needs and so that way, when you start to feel a little off, you can think like, okay, what are the things that, when's the last time I was in nature? What's the last thing I ate? And when was the last time I ate? When was the last time I moved? How does my body feel right now? Like, especially doing this type of work, you're going to be kind of exposed to like a lot of traumatic stuff, like really intense stuff. So sitting back and reflecting and being like, whoa, I need processing this, like processing my emotions. So, and then maybe even like organizing groups that offer resources like that to groups that are doing community organizing. That's like a very strong idea. But self-care is really important in this work, and you can't offer anyone anything at your own expense. And if you're not your best self, then your community can only benefit so much. You know what I mean? You shouldn't suffer for the sake of others. So.
And it's also,
I just want to emphasize that because I feel like I can only be successful at this work. I feel like I can only be successful at this work because I take really good care of myself.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. And it's a good point. Like we are fragile human beings. Like that's why I appreciate the check-ins that we do at the beginning of our meetings, because it allows people to know like, oh, this person's doing pretty good. Like they're feeling themselves. Or you can say like, I'm having a really bad day, like low energy, like I'm tired, like can someone else note take? And that happens. And like, you have no idea how relieved the team is to know for sure and have the security that, okay, like this member of our team is having like a day and like let's just support him. Like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to walk into a group and be like, I can like know that this person isn't at the meeting, and that I'm going to call them at some point later in the week to make sure they're cool. And that just doing like a personal one-on-one, like, hey, are you all right? Like, what do you need? That really helps. Like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it just helps to know that I can be overwhelmed and my place of work won't like scrutinize me or punish me for it. Because like, why would we be punished for just being human beings and going through challenges? Like, we need support when we come through challenges. We don't need to be knocked down.
Yeah, and then activities. What does your group want to do? So this is kind of the foundation of, well, not the foundation, because the foundation is the members. The activities is the second tier, I would say. So again, going back to the goals, strategies, tactics. What is your big vision? So what is the big vision of your group? And then through that, what are the projects and programs and strategies that you can use to accomplish these goals? And then break it down. So it really helps, to have actual tangible actions. I've been in groups before where it's just like, it seems just like all we do is get together and do meetings and have conversations, but nothing actually comes of it. And that's a recipe for fizzling out, because people feel unfulfilled. So it really helps to end each meeting with like action steps. So people walk away feeling like, okay, I'm going to do this, and that. And then they feel accomplished. They feel like things are getting done. And also that's the only way things can get done, is to actually do things. So it's good to have the goals. It's good to have the strategies, but what like little steps to implement those are really important. And then who's going to take on those roles, assigning those roles. So things like that. And if you ever are not sure how to carry something out, there's always like, reach out, develop relationships, reach out for support, reach out for guidance. I know that, I can speak for Cooperation Humboldt because I'm part of this organization. We work like literally, so many of our projects are designed around helping groups, helping organizations to implement their goals. And so in this community, Cooperation Humboldt is an excellent resource for people who have a project in mind, or needing support or needing guidance in these areas. There's so much resources here. And I know that there's other organizations similar to Cooperation Humboldt that can be a support for partnering organizations. So yeah, finding out what your community's needs are through relationships, through conversation, genuine curiosity, genuinely getting to know your neighbor, looking for partners, who's doing work that's in line with your goals, with your missions, with your visions, and don't reinvent the wheel. Collaborate, don't compete, find the gaps that exist within the communities you are serving, but through conversation, through empathetic listening. And then working together to build and create solutions and implement those solutions to fill those gaps. And then, yeah, just again, being realistic about time and capacity. And you'll find that, if you start off just being realistic with your capacity, and if that capacity is small, being okay with that, your capacity will grow as you develop the skills and you build your program. And so don't right off the bat be like, I need to do everything. Just start small if that's what you're capable of, and through that you can grow into, you and your program and your group will grow and be able to take more on, but be realistic. And yeah, just follow your path, the work equally as possible.
Sorry, Sabrina, you did cut out there a little bit. Just the last part.
No worries. Just next slide.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think good job. I think the most of it was covered well. Volunteering is fun. Yeah. That's pretty much the point of this slide is just,
that was me just having fun with animation.
And so now it's our last group discussion, and like, I don't want to, because again, we were planning on having HUUF representatives here, so let's make this worth our time. And like, what role does your, like, to our attendee who is here, these are just questions. Let's do them one at a time. Like, what role does your organization play in the community?
Let's see. I don't know how to answer that. Providing a demonstration home that practices appropriate technology, how to we're trying to demonstrate how to use appropriate technology to solve our problems, to in a way to think sustainably, ethically, and economically with community orientation.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, it's good to like I know for this team, I like you can be doing work and still like be like struggle to wrap your head around of like what is the goal of my team. And so like I've had to put together like presentations, make little charts, make flow diagrams to really like, because I'm a very visual learner, and so that's really helped me to like get an idea. And so it's really important to like really sit down with these thoughts and think about like what is my organization doing, like what are we doing, what are our goals, what are our strengths, and then and having these thoughts, and two, not having these thoughts alone, like sit down with your group and really flush this out, I think is really important. Yeah, so what is your organization currently doing? Is that pretty much what is that all of what you just listed, is that like active?
Yeah, it's active. We're doing it online, Instagram, Facebook,
Cool.
YouTube. Yeah, through email, campus collaboration, all that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I personally want to look more into that. Like I'm curious because like I graduated in 2019 and I haven't like gone back to the university like enough, I feel. And it's because I want to make sure I have a really solid foundation outside the university so that things can actually be more collaborative and tangible. So yeah, I'm looking forward to like hearing more and like learning more myself about CCAT. I definitely, every time there's new leadership or, just new minds, it's always good to, reassess and come to an organization and learn more. I want to take
wait,
yeah.
I'm curious more. I'm curious though. You're within this organization. You said that you're a co-director of the organization. So I'm wondering if you have like any like, are you seeing like are you envisioning anything else that your organization maybe isn't currently doing but that you want to be doing? Are you envisioning like ways that your organization can expand what they're doing or get more community involvement? I'm just curious if you have any like broader visions. Hey, Eve.
Sorry, I'm late.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I want to make CCAT more of a mutual aid kind of place. I want to give garden beds to the new food sovereignty lab so that they can grow their native, plants, and they can name their. We can put signs up with the WIAT names. Let's see, just be more social justice oriented and like keep promoting that, because the engineering and the only science majors don't need to know that too, because it often gets dismissed throughout their classes or whatever, because they're all only science. So
So that last one you mentioned, that's a really good point and a really good goal. And I'm wondering if you've thought about ways to go about doing that.
Yeah, more social justice workshops, more representation in our media. Well, I want to be able to hire more diversely, but that's harder one to do, because unfortunately we hire in a basis of whoever has the most experience. Yeah, definitely, I have much more.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of have a vision for how you want to expand. How do you communicate like these ideas with your team? Is this something that is just in your mind? Is this something that kind of everyone in CCAT is talking about or thinking about?
Yep. So there's always 3 co-directors, and we're like managers. We talk about it. Yeah, we have meetings once a week. We talk about it. Yeah, and we're in agreement. It's just a long process to get that to happen.
Awesome. So yeah, it's sounding like you kind of have some structure and systems in place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering so yeah, we went through this whole presentation. We offered all this information, lots of talking, and information sharing on your end, or I'm sorry, on our end. And I'm wondering if there's anything like specific that we talked about, maybe that that you found especially interesting or especially useful, that relates to kind of what you're doing or helps you in what you're working on currently.
Yeah. So I want to be. So I have a grassroots organization myself growing. So yeah, I really wanted to be a co-director just to get this community organizing experience, and just to know what it's like to have, all the employees and have all the volunteers and other co-directors to work with, and be able to have a big budget and all that, just get my experience in. So yes, I definitely see my vision in the future with this currently right now.
And you said you have your own grassroots organization that you're working on.
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable talking about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I don't really have anything grounded. Like, it's hard to say what I'm doing because I can't pick one thing. And before you jump in, I want to say that, I want to do my organization unlike other organizations who have, like, they follow maybe like a cookie cutter way of organizing. I just want to do it my own way, my own thing. And if I have to do it by myself, fine. Because what you said about people that say they want to do this with you and they don't end up doing it with you, I expect that. So, I'll just do it by myself. And I know that doing it by yourself is possible because I've talked to professionals. Doing it by yourself is um, perfectly able to do it. It just takes longer and it's harder to do, but you can do it, and you can even get farther because there's another people disagreeing with you, this and that. But anyways, that's why I want to learn all these different ways of community organizing, because I want to do it by myself and just be able to handle all things without, and I know how to self-care too. So that, and I didn't always, because I did have a breakdown. But now I know, now I know about self-care.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sometimes it takes a breakdown to realize that you need those skills. I think that it's kind of essential to break.
Yep. So what do you have to say about that? That I
That
want to
you
organize by
have that.
myself.
Yeah, I was just curious. So thank you for sharing. Cool.
Yeah, I actually want to hear though your inputs about me wanting to organize by myself.
Um, I personally think that it totally depends on what you're doing. It's hard to really say because certain things absolutely require a team. Like volunteer, like if you're going to like coordinate a volunteer movement, obviously you need more than you because you're working with volunteers. You can try to I mean, for example, we did like a meal delivery with Red Cross. There's no way that we could have delivered the thousands of meals that we delivered alone. But you know, that's that specific thing. So it's hard to say unless I knew like specifically what it is you're trying to do. But absolutely, you could like reach out to community members and address needs and you know connect. I personally love working on a team, and I couldn't do this work without the support of my team. I would go crazy. But that's just me, and that's just like because I sought out an organization specifically because I wanted to work with a team. But if you have a vision about working with alone and that's how you're going to design your program, then that's different because you're going to be designing what you do specifically, keeping in mind that it's just going to be you. So obviously the projects that you're working to implement are going to be projects that can be carried out by only one person. But I personally, I love working on a team, but that's just me.
Yeah, I cannot. It's very hard for me to work with people because they just never work as hard as I do, or you know, they have a different vision. So I can't work with someone like, I don't know, I just can't work that way.
Can I chime in here because I feel like there's valid points on both sides of what's being talked about here. I really like admire you like being able to acknowledge that it's harder for me to work with people, and the reasons you said, like people disagreeing and people like not having the same vision, and that's hard. That's hard to like be in the presence of. It's not easy to be in the presence of that, but I want to add that it's equally very, very important to get that rejection, to get that misdirection, because what ends up happening when people like are there, they're like excited, right? You guys are talking, they'll share ideas that may not immediately reflect on what you're thinking, but it may add on to it. And it may define your idea even more, like, oh no, absolutely not. That's not what it is because it's this. And maybe that person will leave, but maybe other people in that group will say, yeah, like I'm still here because like now I understand this more. So I guess what I'm saying is that when you have that sense of, okay, people aren't agreeing, people are agreeing, like they're both important. You can't just have people telling you yes, yes, yes all the time, because then you're just doing something from like one angle. But community organizing is a multifaceted thing. You need to have awareness of what other people are doing and awareness of the capacity you have within yourself. Like if you have a big dream, if you want to do it to yourself, yes, you might be able to do it the way you think it's supposed to be, and you could do it in a fairly like decent amount of time. But then you might try to implement it, and then you might find that it wasn't as well-rounded as you may have thought, or maybe other things that people were concerned about never surfaced because they were never there. Again, it depends on what you are doing, and I think having like a thought partner, like someone you trust to like relay these things back and forth with, that could be like really helpful. I know that like when the person who started our group, he didn't start it alone. He had like a whole bunch of people who were like, this is something that I think you could do. And he got advice and they had conversations, and it eventually turned into like a small group, which was a medium group, which is now Cooperation Humboldt, which is actually like pretty large. In terms of like core team members, we have like near 100. So that was just my input on that.
Just to add on, I think too, because all the concerns that you have about working with people, extremely valid, and that's why it's really important for like people that are deciding to work in a group to develop like healthy ways to communicate, ways, how are we going to make decisions, if we do have a disagreement, like how can we address that, and like instead of it turning into an argument, it turning into a constructive conversation. And so there are ways to kind of like mitigate and address all of those concerns that you had. The key is to just be very intentional when coming together with a group of people and establishing right off the bat open, honest, nonviolent communication. Establish a method for making decisions. Establish non-hierarchical distributed leadership, exchanging, like you said, I'm always the one doing the most work. So, establishing roles and making sure that people are committed right off the bat. And then again, opening that communication and so you're creating a space where if someone is not picking up their slack, you have the relationship and the communication channel developed where you can kindly step in and say, hey, when you don't follow through with tasks that you commit to, I feel stressed out because all the work falls on me. So you know what I mean? You're establishing a space and you're creating a container where conflict can be addressed in a healthy way, because conflict should not be something that people shy away from. Conflict should be something that people embrace because it can be transformational.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are ways to kind of to address group dynamics and build a healthy group dynamic so that exactly the concerns you raised can be addressed, because those are valid.
So
Cool. Yeah, I like your inputs. Yeah, so I guess it's hard to explain what exactly I'm doing. So, but anyways, yeah, so I do a lot of networking, a lot of collaborating. So definitely take into consideration what you're saying. Well, that I've already thought of actually, but awesome. Yeah, definitely, like you said, constructive. Yeah, I'm hearing you all out. Here to the end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
thanks
you.
for joining us today. It was a pleasant surprise. And maybe we'll see you, post graduation, networking with our groups and our network, because we are definitely inviting, and like, who knows where Cooperation Humboldt will be in a year or whenever. So yeah, stay in contact.
And if you're at all interested in networking or collaborating with Cooperation Humboldt, or you just want to get a sense, or you want to run some ideas by us, or you want to anything at all, feel free to reach out. You can just kind of Google us or find us on Facebook, Cooperation Humboldt, and we actively check the emails and stuff, and we're happy to help support you in any way that we can. And or connect you to groups that maybe are doing stuff that you're interested in, or anything like that.
Thanks, I appreciate that. What are your names again?
My name is Oscar Movione, and
I'm Sabrina. Yeah, Sabrina Miller, and yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, it's nice meeting you. You most likely will probably be seeing me in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm happy to see that there's people that are really passionate about this. So
Yay.
yeah, best of luck to your co-directing position, and yeah, yeah, again, don't be a stranger. Nice to
All
meet you.
right. Take care and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
hey Eve, thanks for coming in.
Where is everybody tonight? Oh boy.
Yeah, no one came except
I think Amy's here, isn't she? The Humboldt Fellowship one there.
that's not Amy, that's Scarlett, and
Hi, Scarlett.
she was just here to record.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was Sabrina, did you notice that there was a Haley in our meeting for a little bit?
Yeah, I did. I didn't really know how to address that.
Yeah, I felt like if I started to address her, then she would just leave out of fear of being called on.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Who was Haley? Which one was she? I did see, it looked like a Holly. Was it a Holly or a Haley?
it was a Haley. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think I only caught the tail end of that, really. Which probably wasn't, I probably have no idea what you're talking about in that case.
It's okay.
But she was the one that was saying that it was difficult to work with other people, or?
No, it was someone who was just in the who just joined randomly midway through and then left before we ended. It wasn't that person that we were speaking to there at the end.
Okay.
Thanks for showing up, and we understand that this is a difficult time for most people, but the recording can stop now. So if Scarlett is there.
The recording is available somewhere that I can pick up the first half hour that I missed.
Yeah, it seems
The
that they've
recordings
been,
online.
Okay.
yeah, Amy's just been posting them online.
Yeah, we were gonna try to make this kind of a discussion centered around HUUF specifically, but since it was just that individual, her name was Clara, the conversation was just kind of very much us giving information. So
Okay. Your information that you've been giving is really great.
thank you. Yeah.
Hopefully more people will show up next week. Wait a minute, are you doing it next week?
Yeah.
And I will try to catch up on what I missed if somebody could send me a link to that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking right now. I know that
It's on the YouTube page, HUUF's YouTube page.
Oh, good enough. I'll find it there then.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be up immediately. Scarlett will have to email it to Amy, then Amy will have to do it.
Okay, I'll check tomorrow or something like that then.
okay. Yeah, it's also if you go to here. What is this on? I'm on the HUUF website right now.
Okay.
And you see there's a section that says what you missed. Oops. Watch what you missed. Hold on. Trying to copy this link. Copy link. There.
Okay, great.
It looks like the sessions are being posted up on there. So I'm guessing that after this session, Amy will post it up.
Absolutely perfect then. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. I guess today's session is over.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again.
Yeah,
Bye.
well, hopefully we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Sabrina.
Bye-bye.